Welcome to Week 15 of the NFL season, what will go down as the toughest gambling weekend in the history of the NFL. What a great time to start a new podcast. It's Beat the Book, brought to you by the Turf Club at Northern Quest Resort and Casino. Welcome to Beat the Book, presented by Turf Club at Northern Quest Resort and Casino. I'm your host, Keith Osso. Every week we'll be diving into some new picks because gambling on sports is now legal in the state of Washington. We want to do our part to maybe help people that haven't gambled much on sports or talk to people that have, and they can probably make fun of the picks that we make. This podcast will be more about what we're looking for and why we bet what we bet rather than the picks themselves. We will make picks, but if you're going to put money on my picks, I take no responsibility for what may happen to you. You do your own due diligence. We're just trying to talk about the thought process going into making picks, and right now we're going to be focusing on the NFL season. Now, as we discussed in the open here, this is going to be the most difficult week in the history of gambling for the NFL because COVID has its biggest outbreak in 2 years in the league. So we've got players out with COVID. We have games already rescheduled. We'll start with the makeup games going on right now, including the Seattle Seahawks. Their game has been moved to Tuesday with the Rams, which the Seahawks are not happy about because the Rams have a massive COVID outbreak. The Seahawks do not. The Seahawks pride themselves on being fully vaccinated. They feel that they've done more than any other team to make sure that they keep COVID out of their locker room because it's a competitive advantage. Well, that game's now moved to Tuesday. So I made our picks on the air this past Tuesday. Seattle was a 5-point underdog on the road. I took the Seahawks because of that COVID outbreak of the Rams. Even if the players were cleared to play, they weren't going to be able to practice the same this week, and they're coming off of their big emotional win against Arizona last weekend. So I figured a good time for Seattle to cover 5 points, and Seattle's looked pretty good over the last couple of weeks. So that line already now today has moved to a 6-point underdog, which again, because I bet early, I'm locked in at 5. So this week, more than any other week, I urge you to wait until the morning of the games to make any kind of bet, because you can lock into a nice line because you got locked in, and then the other team may go into a COVID protocol. But more often than not, right now, it looks like the NFL is going to be pushing games back to make it more of an even slate because we're so close to the playoffs. So if you're not quite sure because of COVID reasons, I'd wait, play it safe. It may make the line a little bit less fun for you, but it's a safer way to go about betting. For example, if you put money on the Browns this week, their entire team is in COVID protocol. They've got both quarterbacks are out. They're going to have to start a third-string quarterback if they were to play right now. They were one of the teams that got moved back. They're playing Monday night now against the Raiders. Again, the Raiders, not very happy that game is postponed because the NFL said back in July they weren't going to be doing this year. If you had an issue with a roster, it was going to be more of a forfeit than a postponement. But here we are, Week 15. We're pushing games back. So instead of one Monday night game this week, we have two. We have Raiders Browns. We have Vikings Bears. And then Tuesday, now Washington football team and the Eagles are playing, which again, pushed back because of COVID in the Washington locker room, and the Seahawks at the Rams. All those games will be going on. So we have football tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There's going to be a lot of NFL football, a lot of opportunities to make your wagers coming up in the next few days. What we're going to do is talk about the 3 games that I picked on Tuesday, go a little bit more in depth on why I made the decisions that I made, and maybe this will either go with your logic of thinking for putting money on a game or go against it, but that's what the fun of this is. You can always comment with me, you can tweet at me, you can email me, and we can discuss what you do because I'm learning a lot with everybody else. I've had a little bit of experience with this stuff in the past, but I'm trying to always gain knowledge. Obviously, it's the one thing I think you can go to the casino and actually use your education, your knowledge to your benefit. Obviously, poker, a little bit of the same, blackjack with theories and strategies, but actual knowledge of the games and knowledge of the players can help you beat the book. That's what we're trying to do here. So any tips you have, I'm always listening. I'm going to give any tips I hear, and usually we'll have a guest every single week and somebody that knows a lot more about sports gambling than I do, and we'll talk to them about what they're looking for. I know a lot of people put emphasis on third down conversions or total offense yards per pass, whatever it may be that the statistic that you're looking at when you're figuring out what game you want to bet. That's what we're going to try to give you, as many options as you have, and we'll learn a lot along the way. We'll have a lot of fun along the way. but our guest today had an issue. We couldn't get the guest today. So you're stuck with me and my limited knowledge to this point, but we're going to discuss this, talk this out together, and hopefully we'll gain a little bit of knowledge along the way. So the first game I picked, I already missed. I picked the Thursday night game, Chiefs-Chargers, which I said would be the game of the week, and it's going to be tough to top that game. Overtime win for the Chiefs. Unfortunately, my bet of under 52 did not come to be. Now, the reason why I took under 52, these are two prolific offenses. Obviously, first hunch was to bet the over. I wanted 100 points scored. I wanted the over 52. The more I looked at it, the Chiefs have actually held opponents under 20 points quite regularly over the last half of the season. Also, the Chiefs on offense haven't scored over 25 points in quite some time because everybody that not named the Raiders seems to have figured out the Chiefs offense. So I took those two factors. I took in the Thursday night, maybe a little bit of sloppy game, and I thought under 52, 0 for 1 so far this week. That's the lesson that you learn. My first instinct was to bet the over. I outsmarted myself, tried to get a little bit too technical with it probably, and ended up taking the loss. That's going to happen. Let's look at the other two games I have picked and how far the lines have moved already, A, because of COVID, B, because of injury news. Green Bay, I got locked in at 4.5 on Tuesday. 4.5-point favorite at Baltimore. Okay, Baltimore is 1,000% reliant on their quarterback, Lamar Jackson, who's questionable to play. Looks like he's probably going to be able to play with an ankle injury. However, his mobility is definitely in question. Well, if he's not mobile, that takes away why he's dangerous. 4.5 for Green Bay on the road in Baltimore is a small number. How small? That was Tuesday. Today, that line is -7. So I got locked in at -4, loving that. Don't got to cover as many points as if I locked in today. Now, against my advice earlier, wait until game day. That was one that I made a pick based on injury news, not based on COVID. Now, Aaron Rodgers tests positive for COVID again. That line's going to change, and I'm not going to like my 4.5 anymore. Lamar Jackson, if he doesn't play at all, I love my line. The Packers will win by 100. So a lot of things can change between the time you make your bet and the time you go. So it's all about timing and figuring out what line you want and when you lock it in. So I'm very happy with how that line went. I still think Green Bay wins comfortably on the road, even if Lamar Jackson plays. Right now, they're holding on to the number 1 seed in the NFC. They want that home field advantage. Remember, only one team gets the bye in the postseason per conference, so Green Bay wants that extra week off. Sometimes you got to look at what this game means to both teams and make your pick based on desperation of a team. Seattle Seahawks +5 on the road at the Rams. Rams are massively in trouble with COVID right now. They've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 players on the COVID list. That's why I took Seattle as a 5-point favorite. I get 5 points to mess with, and I do think Seattle in this situation has more to play for than the Rams. I know the Rams are trying to win the division, but they're coming off that huge win over Arizona on the road last week to get them just a game out of first place. Might be a little bit of an emotional letdown, a struggling Seattle team coming in by their record. And the Seahawks are playing pretty good football the last 2 weeks. Defense has been improved. They've been able to kind of slow down the run a little bit. It's going to be a tough matchup on the wideouts, but if Odell Beckham Jr. is not able to play because of COVID issues, that certainly limits the offense. How is Seattle going to stop Cooper Kupp? They'd be the first team to do it this year if they do. So you kind of have to give a little bit with the points, but I think Seattle can score some points on the Rams. Jalen Ramsey, one of those guys in COVID protocol. That line now is moved to -6 for the Rams, so I would have got an additional point to play with had I waited just 2 days. Now, that game got moved to Tuesday. We'll see how much that line changes between now and Tuesday because as more of those Rams players come back from the COVID list before Tuesday, you'll see that line maybe even get higher than the -6 that it's at now. It opened at -7, so I could see it getting back to -7 or even -8 if Seattle starts to get some positive cases. So that's going to be our rhythm here on this podcast. We're going to bring you some picks every week, why we look into the picks that we're picking. Again, this is going to be the toughest week in the history of football to bet because you don't know who's going to be on the field. It's hard to make a bet if you don't know if the team's star players are going to be playing. So use caution. Wait a little bit this week as opposed to betting early in the week and getting a line and then perhaps betting it again with a different line later. Not going to be the case this week, I don't think. So wait until Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday on these games. Make sure your players are playing. Then go ahead and make your bet. Even tougher this week is going to be the daily fantasy where you pick individual players because you got to wait until the very end to make those picks, and those money, how much they cost, are going to be fluctuating depending on who's available and who's not. Very tough week to bet the NFL. Good luck to everybody. Don't forget, go check out the Turf Club at Northern Quest Resort and Casino. That's where you can bet on sports here in Washington State, and we'll be bringing you the best knowledge we can give you every week as we try to help you beat the book, and we have a little fun along the way. So if you haven't gambled a lot on sports and you'd like to give it a shot, start low with your money. You'll find out how much fun it is to watch an NFL game or an NHL game, whatever you've got money on. It could be two teams you care nothing about. There could be a minute left in the game, a team's up by 15, and you're living and dying on every play. Now, if you have gambled on sports a lot, you know the agony of the last minute of a game if you're up by 15 with two teams you don't care about. It could be one of the greatest things. It can be the worst thing. It's kind of a competitive feeling and fuel for people like myself. It makes it a lot of fun, but it certainly comes with plenty of anxiety along the way. We hope you enjoy the games this weekend. Good luck to everybody, and we'll see you next week with guests here on Beat the Book, brought to you by Turf Club at Northern Quest Resort and Casino.